All right, all right. Hi, everybody in the chat. I'm so glad you guys all made it. Everybody knows Nell's my co-host here. So I have Cynthia McDonald with me, and I have, it doesn't matter what my name is.
You may call me Robert.
You just call it for short. Yeah, Robert. So, ladies first, Cynthia, why don't you introduce yourself? Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure. So my name is Cynthia McDonald. I am from Chicago, Illinois. I am a social worker by trade. I am also one half host of a YouTube show called The 13%, which is a show talking about socio-political issues that deal with the Black community. And I'm also an advocate. I was going to say activist, but it's more like an advocate. I do a lot of advocacy, political advocacy work with a group called ADOS Chicago. ADOS stands for American Descendants of Slavery, where we are working specifically to garner policies to basically release funding and legislation and things of that nature in order to work on making Black communities whole. So we're doing that on the local level, and we also advocate for reparations for the American descendants of slavery. So that'd be me.
Excellent.
Wow.
Yeah.
I didn't know you had that big repertoire. I didn't know that much about you. You go, girl.
One more
That's
thing.
awesome.
One more thing. I forgot that I also write a blog. I write a blog called ADOSHealthandWellness.com. And it is a blog that talks about the social determinants of health that deal with people who descend from chattel slavery in America. There you go.
Wow.
Okay, now I'm done.
Looks like I have more research to do on you, lady. I tell you what. Robert's like, I got to follow that shit.
I was about to say, you don't even need me for this. She's got it covered. That way, she's got it covered.
No, I do need you because I wanted a male and female because that's two different perspectives right there.
Sure.
Because I mean, you're a minority, but she is really a minority. Like the only way she could be more of a minority is if she's gay, like literally, or trans or something.
I mean, part of my social work, I do work a lot with the LGBTQIA community. So yeah, I do work with that community a lot with my social work. I do.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's great. I adore you. I want to be friends with you, but we'll talk about that later. Right? Robert's like, yeah. All right, Robert. I know I gave you a big thing, big shoes to step in, but go ahead, buddy.
I was about to say, I've got nothing, but my name's Robert Reed, and maybe that's just it. But almost 50 years old, and the only reason why that's relevant is because I've spent my entire life south of the Mason-Dixon line. And so I have seen and heard, felt, and experienced shit that a lot of people like to brush off as that was a long time ago. That's in the history books. I'm like, how old do you think I am? Right? I wasn't born in 1875. No. Everything that you've heard, I've experienced. All the threats that you think were 1955 Emmett Till, wrong. That was in the 70s when I was a kid. And I don't have the social work license. The only thing I can really add is I'm a pissed off and angry Black guy, to be honest with you. The shit that's going on. Yeah, the shit that's going on. I'll tell y'all what I've told a couple of other people here recently. My biggest fear about what's going on right now is how fashionable it is. If you remember, like 9/11, remember how hyper patriotic we all were and USA and America.
Oh, yeah.
3 months later, no one gave a fuck about America, the flag. I'm a military kid.
Yes.
Right. And it was like, you can tell by the way people were talking, it was like, you have no idea we had a flag code until right now. And it became a fashion thing to be hyper patriotic. And what I'm afraid of with this is, do you know how many George Floyds did not go home just that day? You know how many Sandra Blands did not go home? It's just that no one was recording it.
Yes.
Sadly, Mr.
I was going to
Floyd,
say, no, we don't know because they won't tell us.
Exactly.
They hide it from us.
Mr. Floyd, and I'm starting to get goosebumps here, he is at this point a battle cry. But this shit's been going on since before I was born, before anyone here was born. So my biggest fear is that in 3 months, we hadn't changed a damn thing. So pretty much what I can add, again, I don't have the social work license or anything else. I've spent just 50 years in the South, and I am beyond pissed off. I've never been this angry before a day in my life, to be honest with you.
You know, personally, the closest I can get to understanding that is I was gay before it was cool. I've had rednecks drive around me with Confederate flags on the back of their truck yelling, excuse my French, everybody, fucking dyke.
Absolutely.
Get the fuck out, fucking dyke, die, dyke. Like, so that's the closest I can get, but that's only been recently. I came out in 2001 because I was so scared to do it before then. Because I saw how you guys were treated and I didn't want to. I was like, fuck that. I'm going to act straight. It just wasn't, it was scary. It was really scary for me. So that's the most comparison I have for it is being that small bit of minority and dealing with living in Virginia and living in Florida. And, you know, even though Virginia's barely the South, some of them are really South. Yeah. And so that's the closest I can get to it. So, so I was looking it up online and did a little research, and 1800 was the first real slave rebellion that was recorded. So 1800, 220 years later, and here we are still dealing with this shit.
No question.
And it's ridiculous at this point.
You know, it's
and I think the biggest problem is people raise their children and what they believe and what their parents and grandparents believed. Excuse me.
That's right.
I killed a neighbor's dog.
Oh, she's having some dog issues?
Yes, we're having some dog issues.
I just let mine out, so I totally understand.
All right. I have all the doors closed so that no animal can actually enter my room at this particular time. Because they will.
Oh, yeah. My house is just one big open door. My boys walk all over the place. So I'm sure I'll be getting out of my chair a couple of times, too.
Well, I try to leave my door open because my cats love to look outside. It's a beautiful day. There's a nice breeze. And the landlord's dog loves to come and harass them. So
fair enough.
I had to correct that. Anyway, so so 220 years now, this has been going on, and it's all because people have handed down generation to generation this misconception that it's something other than color of skin. Okay. And so the big problem is that, like my dad was a prejudiced bastard. If you weren't rich and white, even if you were poor and white, you were the N-word. You know, you were black trash or you were white trash. And I looked at him, and because I had a friend that was mixed, and all I could think was like, dude, you don't even know him. Yep. So at the age of 12 years old, I told my dad to fuck off because I said, you're messed up, dude. Yeah. Like, leave me alone. I don't want to talk to you anymore. And he was already outside the house, so I just avoided him. I didn't see him for years. And I had no desire to see him again because he was just like, how can you raise all of us, 7 of us, and you're going to raise us to be prejudiced because of some misconception that you were given? And he never broke the chain. So I decided I'm going to break the chain. So everybody in my family, all of us kids, none of us are prejudiced now because we all saw what kind of an asshole he was. Right. But unfortunately, it's not always like that. And as long as parents are teaching this to their kids, this is not going to go away.
Right. I remember when I was a kid, and we talked about that young child in Houston that asked the cop, "Are you going to shoot me?" I'll speak for myself. I've had the exact same experience. And what crushed me about that video is we haven't made it. I mean, I had the exact same fear in like 1978 when I was 6 years old. And here's a young black child with the exact same fears. And I was talking about your dad. I when this shit first hit the fan, I cried for probably 3 straight days. I mean, this has really kicked me in my ass. And I put a video out on my Twitter account because now is the time when everyone's asking, well, what can I do to help? And I remember saying, if you have not lost a friend, when this is all said and done with, you probably haven't done it right. And how sadly you had to break away from your daddy. Everyone has that one friend who'll stop just this short of calling someone a nigger or a faggot or something like that. And we all just kind of half tolerate it. Oh, that's just Joe being Joe. Now is the time. If you want to make a difference, you either slap the shit out of your friend and tell them to check themselves, or that's a relationship that you end. Because every time someone says something effed up, it only dehumanizes that group, be it gays, blacks, women. Every time someone makes a joke about Susie, is like, oh, just that's cute, but go on in there and get a sandwich for me. Every time a guy sits there and doesn't say, shut the fuck up, that's not funny, that's not cute, you are doing nothing but dehumanizing Susie, you are just as guilty. And so, again, sad that you had to break away from your daddy, but that's what it's going to take. If we're going to make any kind of change, shit has to be rattled up from the inside. Certain relationships.
I agree. And I lived in Ohio before I moved here, and I lived right outside of Columbus in a rural area, about 45 minutes away from Columbus, Ohio. And I worked with a bunch.
Kofi,
I guess I'm blinking there. Sorry.
Oh, there
you were frozen for a second.
Am I good?
You're
Okay.
good.
Yeah, you're good now.
Yeah, sometimes I get a little buffering. Sorry, guys. I'm on a Wi-Fi. So, so I lived around a bunch of these white redneck farmer guys. They had MAGA hats in their windshield, and this one guy was just a big mouth, and he had to make dirty, nasty, disgusting jokes involving black women. And every single time I'd tell him to shut the hell up. And I'd tell him, if you're gonna say that shit, don't say it around me, because I don't want any part of your racist crap. I don't want any part of it.
Exactly.
And the other guys would just look at me like, what the hell? I'm like, well, you guys aren't saying anything.
Absolutely.
So all of you can go fuck off. Because if you're all agreeing with him, I don't want anything to do with you. And
Exactly.
I've never been a person that's been afraid to stand up and tell somebody to screw off. People make gay jokes. I tell them whether it's okay or not. It's one thing to joke around and use the word. It's another thing to degrade someone.
I think that is a good example of when you get like the influx of people telling you like, well, what can I do? Because like right now, Black folk had the world's attention, and you have like a lot of people that's actually looking at us right now. It's like, okay, this is a terrible thing, and it's been going on for ages. And what is it that we can really do? And the thing about it is that, and sometimes they look at like, okay, well, Black people, what are you going to do in order to stop this? So we're like, what do you mean? Excuse me. The whole system that we are in, institutional racism, was not created by Black folk.
Come on.
And since we didn't create this particular system that we're in right now, it is not for us to dismantle it.
Yep.
The only thing that we can really tell you to make you aware, and also the different things that actually happen to our particular group that we are disproportionately affected by because of the institutional racism. And it's definitely going to take white people to really own up to what they have done. Because remember, I don't know if you all know, because you talked about the first slave rebellion happened in 1800, but do you know when the first time that anybody heard the word white? White people did not exist until 1681. There was, I don't know if you all, there was no such thing. Matter of fact, when people would determine like ethnicity, it was always concerning what country of origin they were from. So If you were from England, I was English, German, Germany. Even though like at that particular time, it wasn't really Germany as we know it now. But they would still like determine who they were from the country that they were from. But we get to America. And then during that time period, you had enslaved Africans, and you also had indentured servants who came from European descent. They actually stayed in the same quarters, worked the same land, and got the same type of treatment. It was a person named Nathaniel Bacon, I want to say. And you have Bacon's Rebellion, because what he ended up doing is that he basically organized a coup. And the enslaved people, along with the indentured servants, were rising up against the elite class status. That was like the rich white folk, well, actually rich white men, because they wanted better conditions to live under. It took the British Army to come over to America to squash the rebellion. And then after that time period, they say, okay, we need to make sure that this never happens again. So what you had was a slew of laws that have came across that basically essentially created race, separated indentured servants from slavery, from people who are enslaved. And then that basically codified the institution of slavery to what you got written into the Constitution in the 1780s. I want to say 1783 or 1785 when we actually got the Constitution of the United States. Because I know the Articles of Confederation were first, and then you had the Constitution. So now that we have like the foundation of how race was all created, it was all created to create a bottom caste and to keep a certain class of people at the top. And what we have saw from that time period all the way up now is America continuously pushing this particular narrative in order to keep a certain class of people on top and keep a certain class of people on bottom. And what happens also with that is that you have different people that come in between that as buffer classes. And what they ended up doing is getting access to whiteness. And whiteness, and we're past like color. This is so past color. This is about, because like when I even say access to whiteness, I'm talking about normalcy. It's really about like, because like Robert, you mentioned that you had experiences growing up as a Black man that you would fear sometimes for your life if you had an incident with a police officer.
Yes, ma'am.
You know, I feel the same way. I remember I was telling this story of before like the pandemic just shut everything down, and I was still going into the clinic to work, and one night I was coming home, and I got stopped by a police officer in an unmarked car because my one of my headlights were out. And I knew the headlight was out. I was going to get it fixed the next day. Everything was closed, you know. So, and I was just trying to hurry up and get something real quick and then go home. And when I got stopped and I saw that there was 2 white cops with Kevlar vests coming out of this unmarked car, I felt like I was about to panic. I mean, my heart started racing. I'm at 10 and 2. Yep. I'm thinking to myself, okay, my insurance is paid, right? Yep. My everything is paid. Y'all, I ain't got to worry about this. But I don't know, because, everything was cool with Sandra Bland. She just she was upset just because they stopped her for a failing signal, and she's from Chicago, you know what I'm saying? So, I'm like, my heart is racing. And I mean, like, the guy, he came over me, and I think that he saw that I was scared, because like I had like that look, like if I could like lose all the melanin in my skin, I believe I did it at that time.
Yes, ma'am.
And so he was like, hey, I just want to let you know about your light. You can go to AutoZone, get it fixed. Boo, boo, boo. I said, oh yeah, I plan on doing that. I just had to go to the store real quick and go back home. I'll get it fixed tomorrow. And he was like, okay, just want to let you know. And, said my name. So he looked me up and all this other stuff way before he even, got out the car to stop me in the first place. And the whole time, the only thing I'm thinking of is, What can I do to make sure that I get home alive?
Say it. Absolutely. We've all had these.
I just can't even imagine.
It's this
I can't even
pressure
imagine.
cooker that I have tried, and this is why I've turned my phone off. I've worked at the same place for over 2 decades. And the stuff that's, again, popular now, and now my phone's blowing up. I was like, oh, Robert, we're here, solidarity. Is like, fuck your solidarity. I asked for this over 20 years ago. And your story, it's the pressure cooker that certain people just don't understand what we live in. Right. I remember having a conversation with a friend of mine, and it's like, one of the first things that my dad taught me when I got my learner's permit wasn't how to parallel park or anything like that. It was how not to die.
Right.
It was, you, again, keep your hands on the steering wheel. You look straight ahead. It's yes sir, no sir, yes ma'am, no ma'am. Even when they tell you, let me have your license and registration, you announce everything you're doing. Mr. Officer, I'm going to take my hand off the steering wheel. Mr. Officer, I'm reaching into my back pocket. Mr. Officer, I'm pulling out my wallet. Mr. Officer, I'm handing you my driver's license. Mr. Officer, I know you asked, but sir, will you please let me reach in? That kind of pressure cooker. And I remember my friend was saying, well, I teach my son to respect cops too. I was like, then you are missing the fucking point, because my dad's point is, if you don't do this, you're going to die. And that pressure cooker, I don't know too many other groups of people who constantly, I mean, we were talking about that little girl. I saw another video of probably a 15-year-old boy. And it was the top 10 things that his parents taught him. And again, it's the exact same shit that I was taught.
Yeah.
Right? Keep your hands on the steering wheel. When you go to the store, even if you're buying a tube of toothpaste, you put it in a bag and you always get the receipt. Things that I was taught when I was a child is still being taught today. And you're talking about, the history of this country. Racism is interwoven into the very fabric of the blanket that covers every person in this country. Right. And so
I agree.
Yeah, and you're right. It's not.
I agree 100%.
Yeah, it's not for us, right? Because I've already told you, and you know what the worst thing is, and I'll shut up after this, is that we actually have to have a talk to show people how you treat Black people.
Yeah.
Why? It's like, you see how that white guy just went and got gas and you didn't shoot him in his face?
Right.
Okay, I know this is a crazy thing to talk about. Don't do that to me.
Right.
Like, you mean I should let you live like a normal person? I'm like, yeah, fucker. Because if you're not going to do it to this dude, because he has long blonde hair, don't do it to me. And it's a shame that we're sitting here and we actually have to have a conversation. And that's why, again, why I haven't answered my phone in weeks. It's like, well, Robert, how do we talk to you? Like a human, right? And just, it's a shame that we are here.
Like you should have been doing the entire time.
We got here because you made people not human. That's what we got here. And you made America into a place where your citizens, okay, 14th Amendment granted Black people who were formerly enslaved citizenship and all the privileges that's supposed to come with citizenship. You created a class of people that's supposed to be citizens, and you still deal with them as 3/5 of a person. That's and there has been no. Yes. I can't speak on. I saw somebody in the chat that said, white people all over the world have been enslaved. I can't speak on that because we're not talking about that right now. Yeah. And, all I can really talk about is what is going on right here in America, because I'm an American citizen. Yet I'm never, as an American citizen, giving my privileges and my rights as a citizen. Right. And I mean, because even if you, and you know what, Robert, I also feel you as far as when we're talking about this moment, now it's like the end thing to say Black Lives Matter. You know what I'm saying? Yep. And I mean, and that's cool. Yes, they do matter, but we never talk about why should Black Lives matter. Yes, we never talk about the why. Right. Why are we here right now? Why is this even an issue right now? And the thing about it is because America never addressed the very thing that America created to make us where we are right now.
Yep.
I mean, like, hold on for 1 second before my dog run in here real quick. And I look at the cat too, and I mean, like, they all just gonna cause problems. Y'all just bear with me.
You do you. You do you. Like I said, I get it.
I mean, like, if the turtle could leave the tank, you know, the turtle probably up here too.
Yep.
But I'm sorry.
You're good.
But so
no, you're fine, honey. You're fine.
Thank you. So I mean, so the thing about it is that even after you had the emancipation of slavery in 1865, you still ended up having Jim Crow that had all these racist policies that allowed basically tyranny and terrorism, domestic terrorism on Black bodies. I mean, we talk about policing in America, and we gotta understand that policing did not happen the way that it happened overnight. This particular way of over policing Black folk has been around since there was police.
Yep.
You know,
Yep.
I mean, police actually evolved from slave patrols. So before any white man could vote, it was only white men who own land that could vote.
Right.
So yeah, white men property owners. And part of that property ownership was Black folk. And they created patrols of people to make sure that they kept the slaves in line. So if a slave ran away, if a slave decided to rebel, if a slave decided to do whatever that slave was supposed to do, there's a militia in place that was basically recruited in, kind of like how the United States draft men to go to war. You know, a lot of these men who were in these slave patrols, they were not, even though they were white, they were not property owners. So they could be made to work in these particular slave patrols, hunting down slaves. You know, yep. So and basically it was the same thing that we see, like Derek Chauvin did to George Floyd. I'm gonna put my knee on this Negro's neck, yep, and gonna hold you down. That you think that happened? That's not something that didn't happen back in the day, and that just got perpetuated forward. Yes, of course, it was. Yep. You know, I mean, these are different tactics that they basically use to keep these people under control. Yep. You know, and then and one of the things that I keep saying, and this is the reason why I advocate so badly for reparations, is because whole communities are not over-policed. They are not over-policed. If you come to Chicago is one of the most segregated cities in the North. I would even say that it's one of the most segregated cities in America. Mm. And one of the things that you can definitely see, depending on the area that you are in, is if it is an area that's predominantly lived in by Black folk versus white folk versus Asians versus East Indians versus anybody. And when you look at those particular areas, the Black areas are always going to be the ones that are less resourced, less invested. And then the only way that they get to the point where it is it's an up and coming area is when they actually have opportunity zones. But opportunity zones never been an opportunity for Black folk, because the only way that you are able to take advantage of the opportunities, you got to have capital in the first place in order to do it. If you have a people in America where they only own less than 3% of the wealth, yet they are 13% of the population, what opportunity are they going to take advantage of in order for them to be able to buy property, run businesses, all that stuff? And we can definitely correlate, you know, abject poverty in those particular areas, all the way back to policies that have adversely affect Black folk, like redlining. Redlining was a big one. Now we got dealing with mass incarceration. We're also dealing with unemployment. A lot of, and also the curriculum or even resource schools. Even when you even look at healthcare disparities, as far as like, if this particular area has a hospital or not, if this particular area has like enough clinics or not, all these different, social determinants of health, housing, affordable housing, like all those different things are going to be determining if a person is able to thrive in this area or not. And so, and it's really crazy how you can go in one city and go from one area, one neighborhood to another neighborhood. And sometimes those neighborhoods are not that far apart. But if you know that this is a concentration of where mostly Black people live versus a white neighborhood, you're always going to see less inclination and also resources in that area. So the thing about it is that it's not just police reform, even though I support it. And yes, we need it desperately. We needed it like a year ago, 3 years ago, 5 years ago, hundreds of years ago.
I was going to say 20 years ago.
Keep going back.
Yep. Right. We needed, needed that. But it's not just policy. It's not just police reform. We need a total reformation.
Yes, we do.
A total reformation of America, especially how it deals with its citizens. I know I will go back and forth with this one guy on Facebook about, well, Black people never asked to be citizens. I said, well, hell, it don't never matter if they ask to be citizens. We are. I don't give a care.
Yeah,
I wasn't born back then. It don't matter. But I am a citizen. You a citizen. We are all citizens. And if we are citizens, that means that should come with some type of rights. Some type of rights that we're supposed to have, certain type of privileges that we're supposed to have, but we're constantly seeing this social contract constantly broken.
Yep.
What the hell you want us to do?
Absolutely.
See, I'm not sure if that social contract. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to interject real quick. That's one of the things that really pisses me off about it is that, we squash the Black population down. We push them into a poorer area because that's all they can afford, because we won't give them better jobs, because we're going to pick the white guy over the Black guy 90 whatever percent of the time, 80% of the time, whatever. Unless they're getting money from the government.
I'm going to tell you
a minority.
I'm going to even tell you more so. We're going to pick everybody against the Black person. We're going to pick, matter of fact.
Absolutely.
Matter of fact, And I was just going to say, like, I was having a conversation with this man yesterday who was I think he was from Palestine. And he was telling me how he wanted to set up a program where he teaches Black kids to code, because like once you get certified in coding, like you can qualify for really good paying jobs. I said, how they going to get the job? Okay. And then he said, well, I know people. I said, well, you know people, but here's the thing. Did you know that the highest group of folk that work in the tech industry that have working visas is East Indian? Are people from who are Indian? So if they are already coming with this particular training, they're going, more than likely they're going to get preferential hiring over somebody who's already been here, who you just coding yesterday, who you just teaching the code yesterday. So like that's why I said this we need a whole reformation of the entire system. The whole system is fucked up from the ground up.
It's
right, and that's exactly where I was going. We squish them down. We won't give them better jobs. We keep them in poor areas because we won't give them better jobs and the opportunity that the typical freaking white or whatever. And the only variance I've seen of this is in areas that are predominantly white and Spanish. The Spanish people get it. But if there are Black people in that area, the Black people get it. It's just I even see that. I see that here where I live now. There are very few. There's very, very, very small Black community here, and it's pretty much split between Hispanic and white. And most of the Hispanic people get treated like shit here. So they're the ones that are oppressed here and so on. So then we're like, well, you know, and I used to think this, I'm guilty of it. I was in my early 20s. I had no adult black friends. I had no idea. I was totally blind to it. And I was like, well, why don't they just get a better job and get out of there? But we don't give them the opportunities.
Yep.
We're not helping them. There should be some reparation for all the shit that we have done to them all these years. If you give everybody just a little nugget of that money we're spending on a fucking wall and the Space Force that we don't even need to do, just a little fraction of that money, we could save so many fucking people. And it pisses me off that we're worried about how big our dicks are than what our citizens are going through.
My thing with all this is I'm an advocate. If I advocate for anything, it's the mental health community. I was born kind of right on that lip where we're going to get our kid checked for mental illness. The little batch just being disrespectful. I fell on this side of the story. And I remember, you know, as you get a little bit older.
Me too.
The best thing you could tell someone with an invisible disease is I believe you. If you do not deal with a mental illness, you don't get to tell me what it's like. And I say the same thing about being black in this country with all the stats that you just kicked off and everything else. It's not a white person's job to sit here and say, that's not valid. I was like, you have never spent a single day with this skin tone. I had this discussion a couple of weeks ago with somebody because I refuse to even say the name Redskins when I talk about the football team from Washington. And I was talking to a white lady and she was just like, you know, kind of get over it. And I was like, you're a rich white lady. You don't get to tell that Native American they can't be pissed off about a football team named after a dictionary-defined racial slur. And so I think you kind of mentioned, Ms. McDonald, about maybe someone was in the side chat and they immediately zoomed to, well, white people have been enslaved too. And that's why we stay in this fucking spot right here. Because as we sit here and we say, this is the black experience in this country, we immediately have to go over to over here. It's like, okay, but we're still not addressing this problem. It's kind of like, I don't know where everyone stands, even though I hope I kind of have a good idea. Every time Trump fucks up, we immediately have to go into, well, Bill Clinton did that. Well, Obama did that.
Yeah, it's the Me Too shit.
But we still are sitting here with this problem. So you can tell me how Obama did X, Y, and Z, but we still haven't talked about the problem. And so when we sit here and we say shit, like this is the black experience in this country.
Right.
And when someone who's not black sit here and dismisses what we just said, or says, well, white people were slaves too.
Right. I mean, but that's the issue. I mean, like that's what I'm just saying. Like, you know, I don't have anything against any person that's not black. I don't. But the thing about it is that when we're specifically talking about black folks' experiences and how we got here in America. So, I mean, like, even like when I was like, you know, I believe somebody else in the chat, you know, talked about, you know, the difficulties in Palestine. I don't doubt that. Even like he was, even the man who I was talking to yesterday was saying, well, this happens in Bangladesh and this happens here and this happens. And I don't doubt that. And I feel for those people. But the thing about it is that right here, right now, my people are on fire.
Come on. Yep.
You know, and I mean, and I have been told many times, it's like, you can't help nobody else until you get yourself together. I cannot be any good to you if my shit is fucked up and I'm trying to help you with your stuff too. I can't do it, you know, and so like, and if I see an issue, a problem that's right here, especially with folk that look like me, who have my lineage, who deal with the same stuff that I deal with, we got to address it. You know what I'm saying? And to be honest, and this is something that I have seen happen like anytime. One of the things that we got to understand about America is a trendsetter. Okay. And they have been for years. So oftentimes when you see different events that happen and legislation that actually maneuvers it to be changed, you see that particular process actually copied in other countries. Like I think of like the civil rights movement that happened in the 50s and the 60s. And then we got the sweeping legislation in 1964, 65, and 68. And then years later, we started seeing oppressions we started getting more information about the oppression that was happening in South Africa during the apartheid regime, that particular time period. And there was a lot of Black folk that was marching, that was pressuring the government, divest from South Africa, don't let them be in the Olympics. Any company that is complicit on selling products and things of that nature, and they are propping up that regime that is allowing those people to get oppressed, don't support them, don't buy that, none of that, divest. I was hearing that a whole lot in the 80s. Free Nelson Mandela.
Yes.
And it was a lot, and it was a bunch of Black folk right here in the United States that was advocating for those people in order for them to be able to actually see a semblance of freedom. And then we see Nelson Mandela released in 1989. And then also, we finally see the regime of apartheid abolished, right?
Yep.
And even though like they still are having a lot of some of the issues that they're having in South Africa, but I noticed that a lot of people here say, oh, you know what, we march for our rights, we're gonna march for them too, because that's what we do. You know what I'm saying? But the problem is now that we are seeing that a lot of these same issues that we were dealing with in 1865, 1765, 1665.
Yep.
We're still seeing the same thing perpetuated over and over again. It's like it's all it is this policy of a different name.
Yeah.
Racism of a different name, but it's still racist. I'm not, bless my producer's heart of the 13% wanted me to talk to this lady about her non-belief that systemic racism still exists.
Oh, come on.
And so he tagged me into a Twitter conversation.
Somebody really believe that?
Yes, man. Yes. I'm sorry, B. I was just like, yes. They I was like, and and it's the typical, let's just keep it a buck, suburban white woman, evangelical, right.
Husband goes to work,
right? Yeah, exactly. Right. Live in an A+ neighborhood with great schools. Well, I said, well, bless your heart for that.
Yep.
But just because that is your experience, you don't get to say that something doesn't exist when we constantly see that it exists. It just don't affect you.
Yep.
Or they're just blind to it. And I'll tell you why I say that. I grew up in an area that was white. I lived out in the middle of the woods. All the neighbors were like mile and a half apart. Everybody had farms, white redneck farmers everywhere. Nicest people you'll ever meet, as long as you're white.
Yep.
And one day, we had a Black kid come into our school. And I don't know what his parents were thinking. I felt horrible for him. I literally was one of those kids that turned from a bully in middle school to a protector in high school. So I protected all the nerds and stuff because I realized how screwed up it was to be a bully because I was one. So, for instance, this kid's walking out of the lunchroom one day and he goes to walk up the steps and there's a group of these 4 really scummy, shitty, unintelligent kids that always sit on that step and those steps to cause problems. And he's just trying to go to class. And he's hugging his books and he's looking like this, like
Jesus.
And he's trying to get up the stairs. And I see him standing there and they're saying shit and he's just staring at the ground and considering turning around, but I think he's afraid to turn his back on them. So he's just standing there clutching his books. And I walk up and I'm like, what's going on, guys? And they're like, it's none of your fucking business. I'm like, it's my school too. It's my business.
Yeah.
And so they start throwing slurs at him. So I stepped in front of him and I said, you going to let this guy go to class or not? This is our steps. And I said, oh, really? So I stepped up closer to them. And all 4 of them were like, oh, fuck this. Because, bullies are usually pussies. If you stand up to them, they're going to run.
That's right. That's true.
And they went up the stairs and they went away. And he just looked at me like he didn't know whether to say thank you or run. And as soon as they were up the steps and gone and he didn't hear their footsteps, he ran. He was there 2 weeks and his parents moved. Because he got harassed constantly. And there was only, as far as I know, one of me trying to defend him.
See, and that's
because I just knew it was wrong.
I'm going to build off of what both y'all have just talked about, because I've said this before. I'm sure Ms. McDonald has said, no movement gains traction until its antithesis joins in. Right?
Yes.
I can sit here and tell you how much I hate the Black experience. The first person, and this is a true story, first person to ever call me a nigger was my kindergarten teacher. I was so young, I didn't know what that word meant. And it just became contagious fire. And the entire room spent the entire day calling me a nigger. Now, when you're a child, of course, more is better. So you spend 5 hours being called that word. I went home and I told my grandmother, my mom, and my aunt what happened. Like, isn't that grand? I'm 48 years old. That was 42 years ago. I'll never forget how far my heart dropped into my shoes when that happened. I can sit here and tell you how sad that made me. And it won't mean shit until the white person next to me tells that teacher, you are a piece of trash for what you did to that child. Because otherwise, I'm just a complaining Negro. I should be grateful just to be here. Right. And now I almost lost my train of thought because that's a pretty emotional story.
It's okay. Take your time. Like they say, take your time.
Yeah. And it's just all this stuff. And you were talking about the 60s. And I hope I'm staying on track. My brain just kind of scrambled right now because this is a little bit harder than what I thought it was going to be. But I made...
It's all right, baby. Take your time. You're fine.
I made All-American in college football at a school that literally told my dad, no niggers allowed. My dad, coming out of high school, and I just found this out, had the highest grade average of everyone in his city. Every white, black, Mexican, my dad was actually borderline genius. Almost got his PhD in math, but decided to go to Vietnam instead. He was part of the first class that was supposed to break the color barrier in the Southwest Conference. And they told him, you can't do it. His youngest son did it and made All-American. And we've talked about this. And it's just, this is why, and I'm going to rewind to what I said. Again, I apologize for being all over the place because this is harder than what I thought. This is not 700 years ago.
Right.
This is today. This is now. And again, we will continue to have this talk because I have absolutely no trust in this country. Because again, we just had someone in the side chat, you said, sit here and fix their mouth to say, well, what about white people? What about you? What do you want to know about? Right? Because it's still me and Cynthia's job to make white people feel okay for being white in the country. That's all them.
Yeah.
Right? And
no, fuck that.
You and I walk out of that door, and I don't give a shit what anyone says in the side chat now. Now I'm just pissed off. You and I, the moment we walk out of the door, we are automatically felonies. We were born misdemeanors. By the time you hit adulthood, I'm 6'3", 245 pounds, and a bald-headed black dude. I'm a threat the moment I walk out of my goddamn house.
That's right.
And so when I sit here and I hear shit like, well, white people were slaves too, or what about this, or what about that? Again, this is why 5 years from now, I promise you, we will have this exact same talk. This country is not, we are so attached to our racist foundations in this country that we are afraid. I truly think this country is afraid on what we would look like if we were not racist. Right?
Because it doesn't know any other way.
Exactly.
It's kind of like when you're teaching a child to walk, and the child is like used to crawling, and the youth's like, come on, baby, it's time for you to get up. And I mean, and like at first, like since they don't know what it's like to walk and realize that it's a good thing for you to walk, oftentimes, if that's an experience that they never had, they're going to approach it with much trepidation. You know, and
Absolutely.
See, and this is where we are even with this nation. This nation don't know nothing but racism. All it does is just reinvents itself. I know Dr. Francis Cress Welsing and Neely Fuller call it racism, white supremacy, racism. No, racism, white supremacy. They got them to put them together, basically. And the thing about it is that even before the United States was the United States, this was what the United States was built on. I mean, like the United States is a world power today because of free labor. I mean, hello, come on now. I said that's how the United States was able to amass such wealth in the world. Is through free labor. You know, I said in the infrastructure and the government buildings and the railroads and all these things, they were built on slaves.
Yes, and I've said this to people before.
And that's why
if someone
that's exactly why when people say, "Oh, hardworking, red-blooded Americans made," and I say,
bullshit.
No, black people and Chinese did.
Exactly. If
it was black people and Chinese, we made them all work and do our fucking bidding, and we stood around with guns watching it happen, and then we claimed it. So different than what we did to freaking Native Americans.
Right.
Let's kill them all, shove them in a little tiny area, and this is ours.
And at least, even though, like, you know, Chinese built part of the Pacific Railroad, at least they got some semblance of pay. It wasn't shit.
Actually, yes,
right. I said it wasn't shit, but they got something. You know, but that's, I mean, but this is the type of country that we're in. This is how we basically built an entire nation on terrorism. On domestic terrorism, you know, and you know, so if I see a young black man sitting on a porch and they don't want to do shit, I can't blame them much. I can't blame them much. And the reason being is because, like, you know, I'm pretty sure, Robert, you heard this growing up, work twice as hard to get half as much.
Yes, ma'am. Absolutely. Heard it every day in my childhood.
Every day. Yes. Every day. Like, I remember when I was a kid and, I was in my mother's lab because my mother was a lab technician. And I was just sitting and I was looking at her work, and she was like dying slides and writing stuff out. And I said, Mom, what do you need to do to become rich? And then she said, well, you got to work hard. And I said, well, you work hard. Why aren't you rich?
What'd she say?
Nothing.
Yep.
She couldn't answer my question.
Yep.
She couldn't.
How do you answer that to a child? Yeah.
Yeah, I'd be like, and I mean, and the reason, and it wasn't really, but regardless, I would still keep that whole thing. Well, you know, in order for you to make something out of yourself, you got to work hard. But you know, but just get used to not getting as much as you could because you're not part of the dominant society.
See, that to me is part that if you are in receivership of stolen goods, they're still stolen goods.
Right.
Don't tell me about how hard you worked for that Rolex on your wrist when someone stole it, then gave it to you.
Right.
And I've heard the exact same thing that everyone else has, you know, just work harder. Well, I got into XYZ school because I worked hard. It's like, no, you got in because you were a legacy admission. And you're going to sit here and shit on the only difference between affirmative action and what you've got is that yours doesn't have a legal nor technical name. Right. And don't tell me again about how hard it is you've worked when you don't know what it means. And I'm sure some of these business owners, you get up, you get to the office at 5 o'clock in the morning, you don't come home at 10 o'clock at night. You work hard, but it was handed to you because when your great grandfather went in for that business loan, how many blacks were in that office with him? How many Mexicans? How many women? Women couldn't hold credit in the United States until 1972. So again, please continue to tell me about how fucking hard you worked, right? And again, I'm sure you do put in long hours, but again, you were pretty much in receivership of stolen goods. And when the shit first hit the fan with this Mr. Floyd and people were looting, and it crushed me that the exact same people were talking about solidarity. They had more enthusiasm in their voice about a fucking building than a black man who was choked in the damn streets in broad daylight and no one did a damn thing. And I'm like, you know, I'm like everyone else. I work hard for what I have.
Sure.
And I'll never apologize for what I have.
Right.
But money can be remade, buildings can be remade. And I don't want to hear someone speak with more passion about a pile of bricks than you do a human being. And it's just, we built this place for free, and now we have to burn it down. And I don't feel bad for saying that out loud. I really, really don't. And it's I don't
blame you.
We have been humanely dehumanized since we got here in 1619.
That's right.
And that someone who looked like me, I would have been called a buck when I first got here. And me and that wagon over there have the exact same rights because we are both property. Now, here's the difference between the buck and that fucking wagon. When you work that wagon to death and a wheel falls off, you replace the wagon wheel. You don't beat the wagon. You don't rape the wagon. You don't separate the wagon from its family. And you don't hang the wagon in front of all the other wagons to make an example of the wagon. You just put on another wheel. Now, when you work me to death, you beat me, you rape my wife, right? You hang me in front of all the other pieces of property.
Right. And sometimes you got raped too.
Exactly. And so again, this is why we are here now. You can talk about the amendments. You can talk about how I'm legally a human. Making something legal does not change attitudes.
That's true.
We are still property in this country because, again, when I am told, and I used to play football, so we're going to go to the Colin Kaepernick thing. When I'm told a song means more than my life. When I am told a fucking piece of cloth, don't disrespect a piece of cloth. Well, I just want to be able to go to the grocery store and come back and not have to worry about being shot or choked in the fucking street. Well, that song and that piece of cloth is more important than you. And like, if you want to know why it is shit is the way it is because we are still property, right? And they will throw. Well, I've actually had 2 people at work say this. That's what I'm saying. I will say my age 1,000 times so people can understand. I'm only 48. I've had people tell me to my face, "We have given you people a black president. What else do you want?"
Oh my God!
I lied you not. I lied you not.
Fucking no! You know what? You know what? Let's hold on. Let me. You know what?
Come on.
You know what? Come on.
For your bone, you should be okay now.
Listen. You know, Mitch McConnell said the same bullshit.
Oh yeah.
Basically, he was saying that Obama is our reparations.
Yeah.
No, Obama is not our reparations. I got an issue with Obama too, but that's a whole nother story.
Yeah.
But anyway, regardless of that,
yes, ma'am.
Just because there is one person,
a lot more.
Yeah, I said, and just because like a person actually happens to be of color, get into the White House, it has nothing to do with my treatment as a citizen that you are putting against me and people of my lineage and people of my race.
Yes,
I mean, it's totally different. And I mean, and you know, one of the things like I know, like I was told, like, so how do we fix this? I said, well, it starts with legislation and policy because it was legislation and policy that brought us here in the first place. And they said, well, that doesn't change attitudes. I said, you're correct. It doesn't. Dr. King said that you cannot legislate morals, but you show the fuck can regulate behavior.
Yep.
And that's what enforced policy do.
Yep.
It regulates behavior. It makes you less likely that if I am driving my car at night and one of my headlights is out, that I'm going to be less anxious because I know that there's going to be some hell to pay if you decide to shoot me with impunity.
Yep. What was the lady's name in New York that called the cops on the black guy in Central Park?
Amy Cooper.
Amy Cooper.
I her name already.
Yeah, someone told me the other night, apparently there's like the Amy Cooper law where now I guess they're going to break you down if you make a false police claim. And I remember, it's like, I think that almost pisses me off more. Because again, here we are in 2020 and you have to make a special law. Again, like I said earlier, you see that white guy over there who's pumping gas and you notice how you didn't pull a gun out and shoot him?
Right.
Do the same for me.
Right.
And it's like, here we are in 2020 and we have to have special rules on how to do, again, well, Robert, how do I address you? How about as Robert? Right? How do I treat you? The exact same way you would your husband, your son, your wife, your daughter. If you're not going to go and shoot them for wearing a hoodie at 11 o'clock because they're thirsty and they want to go pick up a gallon of soda, If you wouldn't do that to someone else, don't do it to me. And so, I mean, I love this topic because it needs to be talked about, and maybe our children's grandchildren will reap the benefits. But to me, it's just really sad that we have to have a talk on how to treat people who look differently than you. And not to understand, or a refusal to understand, that this country's very foundation, like you said, was built on bigotry, separation, and racism.
Right.
And if that's the way it's been since this place has been open for business, do you really think that one guy, Martin Luther King, or one law passed changes 300 plus years?
It does not.
Some racist bullshit?
It does not.
I train women's self-defense, and there's one lady who I will never forget. When I trained her, she was in her early 50s. And she talked about a sexual violation that she went through in college over 30 years before. And I'll never forget, and really long story short, when it was all said and done with, we were both sobbing while she was punching me in my chest, screaming, "Why me, Robert? Why me? I wasn't dressed like a slut, Robert. Why me? Robert, I didn't ask for it. Why me? Robert, I didn't flirt." And I had no answer. And so my point in bringing up that shitty story is, if 30 years ago still negatively affects somebody right now, because that is now a part of her foundation, because we're still friends. If a bad action from 30 years ago affects someone in their 50s, what the fuck do you think 300 years of institutionalized bullshit does to people that look like me and Miss McDonald? So don't tell me that it's in the past. Don't tell me to get over it. Don't point out Michael Jordan or Oprah or Obama and say things are equal now.
No, they're not.
You still have to answer for 300 plus years of treating us like a piece of property. So no, it's nowhere near over. It hasn't even this fight hasn't even begun. It just happened.
You can't even expect to have one second, please. I wanted to make this
go
point.
ahead, honey.
You can't expect that 155 years is going to allow a people to even catch up from 246 years of institutional slavery.
Come on.
Yeah.
And then you can't even you really can't expect people who got the Civil Rights Act 55 years ago to be on par with their enslavers.
Yeah.
You can't expect that. And because we are still, because if that was the case, then everything as far as like our wealth, educational level, our areas where we live, all these things will be on par with the proportionality of the population share. Yeah. And we would not even be in the case where 41% of the prison population is Black men, despite them being only 6% of the population in the United States. Where they do that at?
Yeah.
And this is the thing. Like, you know, I know I've been veering off at the chat and looking at some of the things that some people are saying, and I'm seeing a lot of whataboutisms.
Yep.
You know, I've seen about, you know, like, and to the other person concerning, you know, what them being an immigrant. Ain't nobody over here shitting on immigrants. We're not shitting on anybody. The thing about it is that we are pointing out the issues that we are still experiencing to this day in America because of what America has failed to address, and America has been complicit in participating in. That's it. You know what I'm saying? And I get so tired of having to feel like that we gotta constantly explain this to people, that just because we're putting a highlight on our issues about how to change the things that constantly adversely affect us, that, oh, now you are the ones who are being racist, or you're the ones who are being bigoted, or you're the ones who is being biased because you have the audacity to say, please stop shooting us in the street. How dare you? You know, or please, actually, or not even please, but we demand for equity in this country. We demand equality and inclusion, not just diversity, but inclusion and equity in this country. We earned it. We fought for it. Black people have fought in every war.
Yep.
Every war. The very first casualty of the of America was a Black man named Chris.
I know it. Yeah, there you go.
Okay. Yep. My father was a Vietnam veteran. My father, not Vietnam. My father was a Korean veteran.
Yeah.
My great grandfather was a World War I veteran. Yeah. We have fought and bled and died and served this country. What the fuck more can we do? I don't know.
Apparently sit down and shut up, because my dad has the emotional range of this coffee mug. He doesn't say much, but when he does, it's super important. And I remember, because my dad's a Vietnam veteran, and he doesn't talk about it. And we just know not to ask about it.
Right.
And I remember one of the things, and I remember one of the things, because he came back stateside twice. And he was telling me that on top of being a baby killer, you're also a nigger. Now, we sit here and we jerk off the troops now, and we love the troops and USA, USA. Like I said, that's a fashion statement. Yeah. My dad said when you got back stateside and you were a Black vet, you either went under the airport or around the airport with the luggage. Like I said, here we are once again putting Black people on the same plane as property. You could not walk through the airport with your white veterans. And so when you say, what else can we do? Apparently it's sit down and shut up and be happy that we're here. I mean, it's kind of like the whole Colin Kaepernick thing. Everyone was quick to bring up his salary, right? You make $19 million a year. You don't have anything to complain about. Right. I'm like, well, how many zeros in your W-2 do you need before your opinion is no longer valid? Right? We are still complaining about the same shit we complained about 50 years ago, 100 years ago. And like I said, to be dismissed by people who don't look like us or had the same experience. I can't tell a woman what it's like to be pregnant or to menstruate. And so if someone tells me this is uncomfortable, and if I fix my mouth to say rub a little dirt on it, get over it, I would be as much of a fucking asshole as the person who sits there and says, well, what about this? What about that? I'm like, we still are not addressing the fucking issue that's on the table. Right. Right. And again,
I'd like to make a comment.
Please.
When you what is it? Deflect to say this person or that person. It's like saying, I have a toothache. It's killing me. Well, that person over there lost 4 of their teeth. It doesn't make the tooth any less painful. You're still hurting.
Right.
Yep.
That's right. That's right.
I've said the exact same thing. And
it's a wonderful, thank you. That's a wonderful analogy. Exactly. I mean, that's why I'm saying, like, no one is in here saying anything adversely about any other group. You know what I'm saying? I think that Robert brought up women and minorities more than I have. You know what I'm saying? And I'm a woman and I'm a minority. You know what I'm saying? Like, all the daggers coming at me. You know what I'm saying? But but at the same time, and also too, like to the lone wanderer, I'm very sorry. You know what? Guess what? My mom's an immigrant. She's an immigrant. My dad's not, but my mother is. So I get it. But again, what's more so consequential when you are actually dealing with a lot of these issues is not my mother being an immigrant, because guess what? When she was being discriminated against a lot, because she got here before the Civil Rights Act were passed. She got here in 1963. So she was really here at the height of the craziness, right? And my grandfather was really in the shit because he got here in 1943. And guess what? When they came here, even though they was immigrants, wasn't nobody giving them preferential treatment because they was immigrants. Yep. They was treating them like some Negroes. You know what I'm saying? Because they shoehorned them like, well, you just like those Black folk over there. Yep. She'll tell you, my mother got a few stories, you know what I'm saying? And when she got here and some of the things that she even went through personally, and a lot of the racism that she actually experienced as well, being a Black woman, you know what I'm saying? Even though, like, she was able to get like some, I don't even want to say assimilation, but she was able to be let in because of her education. Right. You know what I'm saying? So she still had to do that whole narrative, work twice as hard to get half as much. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
She's definitely a product of that life. But at the same time, the thing that was more consequential to her was not her immigrant status. It was the color of her skin. It was the race that she belonged to. It was that kinky hair that was on top of her head.
Yes, ma'am.
You know what I'm saying? And I mean, and that's the thing that was going to be the hook of the crook when it came to how she was going to be treated versus if she was white.
Yeah.
And we got to keep it a buck. We got to keep it real.
What you're saying.
Let me just say.
Go ahead.
Robert, let me say something before I forget to say all this, because it's been building in my head and I'm going to lose some of it. First of all, going back to us talking about the oppression and keeping people from advancing. And then we say, this is what I was going to say earlier. And then we say, oh, they're a bunch of thugs and drug dealers.
Child.
How do you want them to pay for their shit if you're not helping them? How else? What are they left with? You won't give them jobs. You won't help them get an education unless you're making money off the government for it. And then they're mad that they're dealing drugs to pay for their fucking kids and their wife.
Hold on. Let's talk about that real quick. Really, this is the whole this drug stuff and thug shit.
I'm not even black. It pisses me off. Imagine how you feel.
Well, first off, the reason why we have an underground drug economy is because the states allowed that shit to happen. Okay, matter of fact, money off that shit. I said this. Listen, when there's if you all get a chance, have you ever heard of Robert? Have you ever heard of this gentleman named Freeway Rick?
No, I have not.
Freeway, okay, or he was the original Rick Ross. There's a documentary on him called Freeway Rick and Free Crack in the System. I think that's what it's called. And in that particular documentary, Rick Ross was a stone cold crack dealer, and he amassed a lot of money selling crack in LA. But he was a seller, but he wasn't a supplier. He ended up getting like a lot of his connects through Nicaragua, through the Contras.
Right.
The Contras actually admitted that the way that they were able to get the cocaine into the United States in the first place, in order for them to cook it up into crack and to sell it and shit like that, is because the United States government opened the opportunity to open the door. See, we're talking about legislation and policy again. They opened that door in order for them to be able to do that, because they were using that money that they were selling for crack and cocaine and things of that nature that was in our neighborhoods to fund the Contras for their revolution.
Come on. Yep.
This is what the whole Contra affair was about. Oliver North was acquitted. How? I don't know, but he was.
Yeah, you do. Yeah, you do.
Of course, I know. It don't make no damn sense. It's
all about it. It's all about the green, baby.
This is all about that. You know what I'm saying? It's green in this. You know what I'm saying? But but this is where we are. So so like oftentimes, like you hear, oh, they're thugs. They sell drugs. They do this. I said, look at here. The United States government is the biggest
biggest pimp there is. Biggest pimp there is.
On the planet. The main reason why we even had the main reason why we had a crack epidemic, cocaine epidemic, drug epidemic, even when we're talking about the opioid crisis, is because of the American government.
Yeah.
It wasn't because people was just running around like, "Ooh, I want to crack today." Hell no.
And that shit started way.
Child.
Yeah, the drug thing started way before black people were allowed to even own a goddamn business. Exactly. They didn't have any way of bringing that shit in.
No.
So now you're going to blame it on them?
No, we're not. Stop it. That's also saying, like, all these different tropes and nomenclatures that are so fallacious. It's ridiculous.
But on the strength, though, I don't know how many people are ready to hear what you just said. Right? Because a lot of this,
not very many.
Well, a lot of this is tied into your ego. all of our egos. And I still remember, and I played football in the 80s and the 90s. And please forgive my French when I say this. Everything that you did bad was equated to something feminine or homosexual.
Mm.
You hit like a bitch.
Yes.
You missed that tackle. What are you, a faggot?
Mm-hmm.
And so that's just what you were taught.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I got out of football and got into the real world, my mind was still wired to that.
Mm.
My mouth still said shit like that.
Mm.
And I still remember, and God dang it, I wish I would have, if I would have known, I would have bring that book. But there was a lady where I worked, and she, on her tiptoes, she comes up to my chest.
Mm-hmm.
I remember she grabbed me by her shirt, pulled me down to her physical level so I could reach up to her intellectual level. And she ran up my ass, out of my mouth, in this ear, out of the other ear, and she tore me a new one. And she straight up told me, you are part of the fucking problem.
Wow.
She knew me. It's like, you are not homophobic. You are not misogynistic. I know you. But every word out of your mouth betrays what's in your heart. And it was one of the hardest talks I've ever had to listen to. And I had to admit, I am the problem. I would die before I hit a woman. That's just not how I'm wired. I would not. I have my big sister is trans. So we were joking about kind of the trifecta. An atheist, gay, trans woman. Beat that.
Right.
Right.
I'm just an atheist black woman.
Atheist, gay, trans, black woman.
Right,
From,
exactly.
from the South. So she checks every damn box there is.
Right. If I was a praying person, because I'm not, obviously.
Right.
Yeah, more power to you. Yeah.
And she was like, we know who your sister is. Every word you say is a slap to her face. All that. And I can't lie. I had to sit here and take it and admit that my actions and my words only put one more log on that forest fire. So my point is, all that, other way around, all that knowledge you just kicked, Ms. McDonald, how many people are ready to receive that knowledge? Because this won't change until people on this stratosphere admit that they are not just part of the problem, but the problem. Right? Having to sit here and say, I remember Boys in the Hood, the big pivotal speech where Furious Styles, was like, how do you think this shit gets in here? We don't own the boats. That was 1990.
Right.
Shit that I remember when I was a kid in the 1980s and and here you are saying the exact same thing. Yeah. And it's the truth. But the problem is, and the reason why we're going to hit the goddamn rewind button and talk about this 5-10 years from now is because people are not ready to admit that maybe just possibly they aren't part of the problem, but they are the problem. Right? You got to break that ego down. And again, I'm nobody special. And I fully jump on my own grenade. I said a lot of fucked up shit because I was taught that's the way you talk. Right? What are you, a faggot?
Yes,
come on, you're a fag.
No, Robert, I was raised the same way.
Yes,
even up until I'd say like 4-ish years ago. If somebody was acting like an asshole, I automatically went to race in my head. I automatically went to their ethnicity in my head, whatever it was. It's fucking spick. Yeah. And I'm going, and as soon as it came into my head, I was like, oh my God, where'd that come from?
Say? Yeah.
It was my father. My father said that shit for so many years. I still have little thoughts pop into my head, and I go, God, where is that still coming from?
But I'm saying
it's ingrained in me. He raised me to think like that. It's hard to break that chain, and it's hard not to. I mean, for years I had to fight to not let it fall out of my mouth.
There's nothing wrong with being wrong, if that makes any sense. Right. The problem comes where you won't admit that you fucked up. Right. My best friend.
Yes.
Hit one of his main things he's looking for when he's looking for a partner is someone who will admit that you ain't shit. When you think that you are the center of the universe, when you think that your shit doesn't stink, that it just then it's like, I can't be with you. I need you to admit that you are 0 so we can at least work to like 30, because he'll be the first one to tell you, I ain't shit. He's super successful.
Yeah.
He has a house 5 times as big as, and he'll be the first one to tell you, I'm a hot steaming pile of shit. I'm part of every problem there is. Now I need to work to make sure that I provide a better life for the people who come after me. Right. So again, Ms. McDonald, everything you said was spot on. And 30 years from now, someone's going to say the exact same thing, because people are not ready to admit that minimum they're part of the problem.
I ain't got another 30 years, so they're gonna have to get it together. But I mean like, but I'm just hoping that like that there will be more conversations like this where we can just put our cards on the table, because and I really need white people to do the work.
Oh yeah.
I need you all to do the work. I need you all to really own up to what this country is about and how you benefit from it, and and also how you allowed certain things to happen and even was instrumental in letting it happen to get us to this place. It makes no sense to me. Well, let me rephrase that. It makes sense, but it should not be that you would say that we have a people here that have contributed to American society since before America was America, but we won't make them Americans.
Yep.
And we know, because I don't care where you are in the United States, this United States, even when it comes to our neighborhoods, is very segregated.
Oh, absolutely.
And we already know that there is going to be a certain sect of people that's going to live one way and a certain sect of people that's going to live another way. Damn your Oprahs. She's an aberration. Damn your Obamas. That's an aberration. These, even Michelle becoming an aberration, because you got less than 350,000 families in the United States that's Black that even can say that they have $1 million in assets. I think total Black is about 42 million of us, as far as like total Black, and then like 32 to 35 million that's descendants from chattel slavery. So the other portion that's Black is like 10 million like immigrants in total. So but still, why is it that, as I mentioned before, 2.6% of the wealth in this country are owned by Black people? Over 90% is white.
Come on.
Why is it that only 16% of Black people, I believe, actually hold college degrees? And we in 2020. And then you hear, oh, education's the answer. No, it is not.
No, it is not.
No, it is not.
It is not.
I mean, even if you take, if you even take like that number, about 2.6% of the wealth is, held by Black folk, right? Over, so that's like about like less than $3 trillion of wealth shared out of that entire group, versus white folk like around 90 to 100 trillion. And then you even send that kid to college, and we already know, like you've been to school, I've been to school. I remember my father was cussing my ass out almost every day because I always needed shit.
Yeah.
I need you to send me this money. You need to send me that money. This, you know what I'm saying, like that. And and sometimes it was a struggle, just to keep me in school, despite me having loans and despite me even like was able to scrounge up a little scholarships here and there, but it was still a struggle, versus a person who can go to their resource and just pay that shit right out and you done. Yep. You know what I'm saying? I mean, and this is and so even just to keep I remember DJ Vlad said before he stuck his foot in his mouth, He said, you know, yeah, I agree with that. You know, Black people should get reparations. Maybe we should just give them free school, you know? And I'm like, okay, even if you say, okay, we're going to give you free college tuition, you still got to pay for board. You still got to pay to eat. You still got to travel back and forth to home. You got to pay for food, supply. All right. You know, and college is expensive. And it only get higher and higher and higher and higher, man. And, you know, and so what if that family don't got it even to the point where they can send you to school even with free tuition?
Yep.
What if they can't do that? So what's that child supposed to do?
Exactly.
And then even if they actually get the degree, you still are not going to have the guarantee that they are going to be able to actually land a job where their income is going to be able to even pay off the student loans that they get.
Yeah.
I remember there was this young man. There's this young man that used to call into this political show that I would listen to a lot, called Breaking Brown, and he was a doctor. A descendant from chattel slavery, medical doctor, had over $400,000 in debt.
Yep.
400. He got his degree now. He practicing medicine now.
Yep.
And I mean, his salary is pretty good. He making 6 figures, but he still got $400,000 in debt.
Yep.
That's a decent house in Austin.
Oh, yeah.
You know?
Oh, yeah. It's about average nowadays.
Right, exactly. You know what I'm saying? So I you know, and I'd be like, I don't even want to address my student loans. We're not even going to talk about that. But anyway, because I start to cry again, I die a little bit on the inside. But like I ain't never going to, you know. But regardless, I mean, but still, you know, that's like the narrative.
I never went to college. I thought I'd fuck it up, and it was too expensive. I couldn't afford that shit.
Right.
I worked my ass off my entire life just to survive.
The exact same people who sat there and told me shit like, we gave you people a black president, what else do you want? Mm-hmm. I openly admit I am part of the anomaly status. I coming out of high school, I had my pick of where I wanted to go to college for a full scholarship to play football. I made it into the NFL. Yep. And if you were to tell every high school boy, well, Robert Reed did it, you can do it too, you would be fucking lying to that child.
Right.
At least in football, it's called the Coke bottle effect, right? Mm-hmm. This is how many, it's the bottom of the Coke bottle. This is how many people play junior high football. This is how many people play high school football. This is how many people play high school football, make All-American. This is the number of people who go to college on a full ride scholarship. And that is the bottleneck of the Coke bottle when you talk about people who've actually signed an NFL contract.
Right. It's like this piece right here, that piece right there. You know, that's the millionaire. Yeah.
On what Robert Reed did, you would be lying to them. And you were talking about the college thing and the loans. I'm very lucky. I worked my ass off for it, but I'm very lucky. But I remember when people would throw that in my face, talking about, well, you went to UT. I was like, even in 1990, it's either 90 or 91 when I got there, when you looked up the stats on how many black people were on a 70,000 person campus, less than 1%.
I believe you.
Now, you fast forward, and the other bullshit that I get to hear with the last 3 years of the Trump administration, they tried to write me up at work, and I told them, you can fire me before I sign this disciplinary notice. For 3 years, I got told, Robert, you have no idea how hard it is to be a white man in this country. I'm like, no, why don't you tell me?
Whoa.
I lie to you not.
Oh, my goodness. I have to, hold on, Robert.
Come on, breathe. Go on and breathe.
I had to put my imaginary pearls.
I know, it hurt. Take your time. You take your time. But I had people tell me.
Sure you don't live in Alabama, Cynthia. I had to clutch my pearls.
I got triggered. I'm sorry.
The last lady who sat there and told me that, and I could tell she was winding it up. And I told her, don't do it. Because if you do it, I'm going to cuss you out in the middle of this gym. And she did it. And she was like, Robert, you have no idea. Because she's like a 5th generation, whatever, college, I won't say the name. But because her son didn't get in, but he got into another Division I school. She's like, Robert, you have no idea. And I cussed her out in the middle of a full gym. And they tried to write me up. And I was like, you can fire me because I'm not signing that. That made me look up. This was 3 years ago, 2017. So when I get enrolled in 1991, the black population, fuck it, her kid was trying to get into UT, was less than 1%. In 2017, it was 3% black.
Wow.
3% black. So for every, I'm so bad at math, for every 100 people on that campus, you'll find 3 black people. And so again, it's not equal. It's nowhere close.
And I would even ask, even in that one that for every 100 persons, like you find 3 black folk, I would even ask them, like, you know, so and what are those black folk? You know, I say, are they African immigrants? Are they Caribbean immigrants? Or are these like black folk that are descended from chattel slavery? And I'll tell you why. And I'll tell you why that matters. Like, remember, I said my mom's an immigrant, right? And my mother had certain educational levels before she got to the United States that qualified her to get here in the first place.
Right.
Okay. So she was able to have some type of a semblance to certain avenues, access to certain avenues because of that, you know. Mm-hmm. But you take a person that comes from chattel slavery, right? And they've been here and they've constantly had those policies like redlining, segregation, separate but not equal, you know, peonage, all these different Jim Crowisms, black codes, all this other stuff. Stolen land, stolen wealth, Tulsa burned down, Wrightwood burned down, Rosewood burned down. I mean, they just burn the motherfucking shit down, you know? And this is the type of, you know, experience that they're coming from. And then we get up to here. And then again, if we're having these particular policies towards a certain sect of people, what type of a semblance of actual success that you're going to think that they're really going to own in as a group? Exactly. That's what I said. Like you were able to access, you know, being All-American and playing football. I can't play football.
Right.
I am a horrible athlete. I mean, I just started running about 5 years ago. Okay, not even 5, like 3 years ago.
Oh yeah.
Y'all should see my medals. I'm very proud of that. But that's a whole nother story.
I dig it.
But those are finisher medals. Those I just participated. You know, I'm just like, I have a girlfriend who she called me and say, Cynthia, they're gonna have a race. It's a 5K or it's a 10K. You want to do it? I was like, this will have a medal. I trained her. She don't even ask me no more. If it got no finisher's medal, I ain't doing it.
I ain't doing it. Yep. I dig it.
I want that to hang on the wall.
Yes, I need that validation. Okay.
I feel you. I feel you.
We all need validation and affirmation, baby. It's just the way we are humans. That's the way it is. We all
need that. I need that. That's part of my mental health. But even with that being said, like, you're gonna regulate a whole population of people based on their athletic prowess in order for them to get an education. Yep. Not free, you know. I mean,
that's what I'm saying. That's why we are still objects in this country. So I've been at the same place for 23 years, and when I first got to this one fitness studio, it was the only thing separating that from a Klans meeting is that no one was wearing a hood. And I have cussed out more people than what I've trained. I've gotten into more fights. And I remember one of my experiments, because people were like, oh, no, it's great. It's equal. You know, you niggers have Martin Luther King. Everything's okay.
Right.
I was like, okay, everyone has cable right now. Everyone has at least somewhere between 500 to 700 channels. I just want you to go home tonight, and I want you to flick through all those channels. And you come back to me tomorrow. And you tell me, how many black people did you see? And of the black people you saw, how many of us were not playing a sport, rapping, or dancing? You come back and you tell me that.
Right.
Because again, we are still objects. We are here to entertain you. We're here to rap for you. We're here to dance for you. We're here to bounce or throw a ball for you. And that's what I'm saying. everything you said about 15 minutes ago was so spot on. It was ridiculous. But it's how many people are ready to receive that knowledge.
Right.
And if you want to know why, there's
not enough
between George Floyd and Emmett Till. Those two things are separated by what, 60, 70 years?
Yeah, roughly about 60 years.
Please tell me how much fucking difference we've made. They killed a kid over an accusation of flirting with a white woman.
Right.
Turns out it was a false accusation. She came back before she died to say her husband and her brother-in-law made her say it because they needed an excuse to kill a nigger.
Right.
We choked a black man in the middle of the goddamn street when the sun and the sky, and no one did shit. I talked to someone last week and she just couldn't understand why that happened. And I asked her, when was the last time you lost sleep because you stepped on a roach? And when she said never, I was like, that is my fucking point. We are not human still. And so everyone who wants to sit here and tell me how everything's equal, it's not. I live in Texas, and 2 hours, 3 hours north of me was Botham Jean. And I had an argument with a lady there over that because she just didn't understand. It's like, well, she was exhausted and everything else. I'm like, I am a large black dude. Now, if I accidentally broke into your home and shot you in your chest, do you think there'd be a fucking investigation? Or would they hang me before I got to the goddamn jail?
Right.
Right? Because still in 16 whatever, I was still on the same legal level as the wagon that you fixed, but you would hang me.
Right.
Right? And so here we are in 20 whatever, we're killing black men in their homes. We're torturing black women like Sandra Bland until she has to end her life. We choked a black man in the street. We would not treat a stray dog that way.
And don't forget Breonna Taylor.
Oh, the list goes on. You and I can both sit here and fucking go on for the next 9 hours.
Oh, yeah.
And just from the day we were born, talk about all the cases. And the reason why it is because we are still looked upon as threats. We are still looked upon as property. We are still looked upon as lesser than. And just like that poor lady who I love to death, one sexual violation 30 years ago has shaped who she is now. So don't ask it, because if someone told my friend to get over it, it was just a single rape, she wouldn't have to get mad. I would kick that dude's ass for her. We wouldn't dream of telling a rape survivor, it was just one time. You were wearing skimpy panties. You got what you deserve. We would not dream of saying that. But when me and Miss McDonald sit here and say, this is what this country was founded on over 300 years ago, we get told, get over it. Things are equal. Things are just fine now. If you wouldn't tell that to the rape survivor, don't tell that to us. Because when the country was founded on bullshit, it's still interwoven. I mean, again, I'm so happy. I'm so happy you gave me one president. 44 others looked nothing like him. So maybe when we get 45 black dudes, maybe you can tap me on the shoulder and say, but Obama is to what I am. I am the anomaly. How many people, white, black, green, or otherwise, signed an NFL contract? That's why we tell high school and college athletes, get your fucking education. Because chances are you're going to have to go into the real world. Very few people play on Sundays. And so that's what I'm saying. Obama was the anomaly. And yeah, I could pick on some of his shit too, just like you can.
Oh, yeah. That's a whole other show.
Yeah, he's not the average. So we have to sit here and look at this group versus this group over here.
Right.
And this group is still being shit on. So again, all the whataboutisms and all that other crap, this is why we're still here, because we still haven't addressed this. Right. We will go right or left, and we will sit here and we'll talk about other shit while this pile of crap is still going on.
That's right. B, what are you going to say? I saw you point your finger.
So two things. Yeah, I was just, it's my talking stick. I want to talk. So two things that were said in the chat. One was, well, both of them were by Mama Atheist. She said Fox News called George Floyd a lifetime criminal because he had a couple of drug charges. This is the rhetoric they're trying to push. I think she wants your opinion on that. And she said she brought up the fact that Trump said he's done more for black people than Abraham Lincoln.
Okay.
So
Can I jump on that?
you guys can pick which topic you want to talk about there, and I'll let you guys.
I'll go with the Fox thing.
Rant.
Oh, I was gonna rant about the Fox thing too, but I can talk about Trump too if you want.
Well, I can. How about this, real fast? So here's the thing about Fox News. Fox News only exists to two reasons. One, because Trump's nuts won't juggle themselves, and the other thing, they are here to demonize people. If you remember, it was at the San Diego Zoo where their small child who just so happened to be black fell into the gorilla pit.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah,
and they had to shoot.
Yep,
they had to shoot the gorilla. Yeah,
exactly. Every other news station talked about the ethics of why they had to do what they did, and I still remember. I can't remember what the guy's name is, but he was like, that animal, when excited, can go from 0 to murder in half a second flat. A gorilla of that size and that maturity level, if you put a ripe coconut in its hand, could crush it. We didn't have a choice. This is why we had to put the gorilla down. Fox News, on the other hand, the boy's dad, who had nothing to do with the story, he was at work. They found out that he had been arrested before, and they ran a fucking story about a man who was arrested years ago. So their only mission, I mean, this is the station that has Laura Ingraham that told LeBron James to shut up and dribble.
That's right.
Told Drew Brees, oh, your opinion is very valid. Fox News' only job is to juggle Trump's nuts and to continue to peddle racist narratives. That's their only job. It's to make white people feel like victims, right? And fucking here's the reason why: because these dangerous black people are going to go wild. Fuck them.
Yeah. So fuck Fox News, and and I remember years ago, I was on this whole business kick. And I decided to sell jewelry.
Right.
And there was a person who was my manager who was going to kind of teach me the ropes. And the first thing I had to do was see how she runs a party. So I went to her home to go observe this phenomenon. And while she was running her party, she just kept on talking so much about how wonderful Fox News is. And as I was just sitting here absorbing the things that was coming out of her mouth, I was like, "Oh, I can't work with you. I can't be." And the reason being is because I know for a fact how fallacious Fox News is, and this is before Trump he was in office. I think at this particular time, I think Obama was in office.
Oh my God.
And so and they was ripping, Obama for like every day.
Everything. For everything.
Every day. You know what I'm saying? So if Obama wore blue instead of black, that was wrong. If Obama put up his right hand instead of his left, that was black. I mean, it was wrong. I mean, like it got to the point where it was just ridiculous, right?
It was.
And I mean, like, and you know what? If you want to, and I mean, like I said, no president is above criticism, and I can name a bunch of different things that I can criticize Obama for, but it was on a policy level,
right? It
was on policy levels or policies that he did not advocate for that he should have advocated for.
Right.
But as far as like if he wore a tan suit one day, I don't give two shits. I don't. So what? So what does this have to do with his ability to being president? You know what I'm saying? And then so we fast forward,
nothing,
and then we get Trump, right? And I remember I was going back and forth with some black folk on Twitter who was kind of blaming us, Trump, on black folk because we didn't show up at the polls like we did for Obama.
Oh, don't get me started on that.
You know, right? And I was just like,
Don't get me started on it, Robert.
and I was like, what are you talking about? I say, even if you didn't have as large as a black turnout for Hillary, 90% of black voters voted for Hillary. I think it was like 91% was black women and 81% was for black men. We were the largest group that voted Democrat more than anybody. We outweighed Hispanics. We outweighed white women. We outweigh white men. We outweigh everybody. So you get for this whole no, stop that. That's some bullshit.
But they're not ready to hear that. People aren't ready to hear what you just said.
They're not. And then so we get to Trump. Child, we get to this person. And I mean, like, and to be honest, I'm not feeling Biden either. You know, I think that's, you know, to be honest with you, the DNC allows this person to take the nominate. You might as well go ahead and give Trump another 4 years. That's exactly what you're doing. But, you know, but again, let me get on my other rant. Right. Trump saying that he did more for black folk than Lincoln. That's what he said, right?
Yep.
Okay, so Trump tax cuts is really bad for black communities because those tax cuts again are for the people who have wealth. If we only own 2.6% of the wealth in the entire nation, how do you think that particular tax cut per se that's mostly for wealthy people is going to affect us? It's not going to help us at all. In some cases, it's going to hurt because what happens is that if you're not even taking in some of the other revenue that you were normally taking in, that means that other programs that we may benefit from are going to get cut, and that's what we see. So we're going to see a backlash of social programs like SNAP benefits, Medicaid benefits, cash assistance, housing issues, all these different things are all the budgets that's going to actually be able to help low income people, which mostly is black folk, is going to be the thing that's going to cause like a ruckus in our particular neighborhood. So that's some bullshit. Then again, like when we was talking about opportunity zones, Trump wanted to do a whole thing about opportunity zones in different areas in the United States, right? Where they deemed that these particular zones are going to that we're going to invest in, and that people who got plans and this, that, and the third will be able to take advantage of these plans and all this other great stuff, right? Keep going. Yep. Okay, yeah, do your thing. So it sounds real good on paper, right? Until you see who's going to be able to take advantage of the opportunity zone. It's not going to be the people who live there. This is another way to rampify gentrification. So again, businesses, folk who go capital, in order for them to go into these particular disenfranchised neighborhoods, is going to be able to invest in them. And then the people who live there are going to be priced out. And then they're going to end up moving to another poor area, or maybe not even move at all because they're homeless. And we see even a lot of matter of fact, Los Angeles is a prime example. I want to say about 35 to 40% of the homeless in the nation is African American. I think it's like almost 60% in Los Angeles. And you have a large sect of Los Angeles residents who are homeless that are black, that are working, but they living out their car because they can't afford rent, let alone buy a house.
The working poor,
exactly. Yeah. So so this whole thing about you've done so much, and then even when he was touting about the unemployment rate, I to be honest, that was a trend that was actually started under Obama. So as long as you didn't fuck up too badly,
because it takes a year to 2 years for what the previous president did to roll over, and it's actually your work.
Correct.
Yeah.
Right,
And boy,
exactly.
that pissed me off. He jumped right on that shit and said, "Look what I did, you
Right.
bastard! You didn't even start
You
it.
didn't, right?
We
Let's
won't
say
even
you
see the
didn't do
effect
that.
of yours until you're in for 2 years and then 2 years past your first
Yep.
term. Then
I
we'll
was
see it."
I had this argument with people before when they were already, he's done more for the black community within like the first 6 months of his presidency. Like, do you understand that the first 6 months of your presidency, you're still trying to figure out where all the bathrooms are in the White House? There is no president who becomes president here and 6 months later cranks out some legislation or anything that is so earth-shattering and life-changing. That's not how it works. And so when, at first I saw some stuff on the screen. Hi, Mama Atheist.
Yes.
But
Shout out to Mama Atheist. Thank you for your kind words. We appreciate it.
very much so. Love you. But I've heard the exact same thing, that he's done more for the black community. And first and foremost, anyone who says that hasn't done a 2-second Google search
Right.
on what Trump did, with housing and stuff like that.
Yes. Talk
Right?
about it.
So don't sit here and tell me that all of a sudden he loves Negroes because Kanye West sat his monkey ass in the White House and rattled off some bullshit. I'm not impressed. I'm not. And so again,
Trump
was
hasn't
off
even-
his meds. Kanye was off
Trump
his
hasn't
meds.
even.
Let's keep it a buck. Kanye was off his meds that day, and he just went.
And here's the thing, though. I've gone off my medication for my mental health as well, and it's never made me into a damn sellout. I'm more self-destructive than I would be destructive to my community. And so I don't know if that was a publicity stunt. He just needed his name in the limelight. But, we have the same energy and all this other bullshit. And this hat, the MAGA hat, makes me like Superman.
Well, remember also, too, what he said on TMZ. He said slavery was a choice.
Oh, my God. And so here's the problem. And I'll put Kanye West in the exact same category as Stacey Dash.
I fucking love you, Cynthia.
There's a whole bunch of them. Anthony Brian Logan. There's a handful of people, because as horrible as Fox News is, they know that there's a line that not even they can cross. And so they'll go get Stacey Dash. They'll go get, I'm trying to remember all the other idiots.
Candace Owens.
Because if they got you and me on there, it's going to be a different story. It's going to be a different narrative. So they'll get, those coons over there, because they need to be able to spit out, a racist narrative. Right? And I actually saw something earlier, because I hate myself, some Candace Owens shit.
Oh, I know. If you real quick, let me just interject real quick. If anytime that you want to die slowly from your brain turning into scrambled eggs and then oozing out of your ear, listen to Candace Owens. Continue.
And I did sit here and listen to her say shit like the Southern Switch never happened. I was like, you understand? That's a Google search.
Yeah.
Right. This isn't even arguing over did the Southern Switch happen is like asking a world-renowned OBGYN to debate someone who thinks storks still bring babies. We don't talk about this anymore. Right. And so, Fox, they know there's a line that not even they can cross. And so they don't get, those idiots to go and say some stupid shit to further a narrative that is just false. And that's on a good day.
I listened to the majority of her rant about George Floyd, because again, I hate myself too. Yeah. And because I really wanted to, because like I was hearing people talking about it, and I was really trying to say, what is this shit? What did she say wrong and loud now? The only thing I agree with her on is that the Democratic Party takes advantage of Black people. And that is totally true. Yes, they do. I totally agree with that. I totally agree that there needs to definitely be a shakeup in like the DNC, especially when it comes to policies that they're trying to tote to Black folk in order for us to say that, yeah, we'll vote for you. Because voting should be an exchange. It is not something that I just give to you. No. If I'm going to give you my vote, what you going to do for me?
Exactly.
Okay. And that's exactly how it should be. And and when it comes to the Democrats, they have a tendency to pander to our vote, but they never actually deliver on any type of policies that make a difference. Okay.
Come on.
So that's I agree with her on that, but that's as far as it goes. She was what's the word? God damn it. She was spouting out all type of wrong statistics when it came to crime, especially how participatory Black people are when it came to crime, and saying about we have a cultural issue and all this other. Oh my God! So like there was, I forgot the guy's name. I think his last name is Dualis. That's what I want to say. He's a YouTuber that broke her whole thing down and just basically read her for filth. And I tweeted at her and I said, Candace, you're wrong about crime statistics when it comes to Black people.
She doesn't want to hear it.
No, I sent her a list. I sent her the crime statistics from 2018 to 2019 concerning, arrest and the crimes and in the United States. And there was only one category that I think that Black folk kind of edged white folk out in a little bit in this murder. But it wasn't by that much. Everything else, white folk actually committed more crime in every category than anyone. So this whole thing that she was saying about, that we have a culture that is that gleans to this I don't know, the gangs of New York type style shit. I mean, like, again, where are you getting this? Because I was like, where is your source? Because
her ass.
she kept on, she was saying it like she had a source.
Oh yeah.
Of Black people do this, and 15% of Black people. I was like, where's your source? And I was like, and so I'm like, and that was a quick Google search.
Oh yeah.
On the FBI crime statistics. Yep. I was like, wait, no, that's not true. What the fuck is this bitch saying? I'm sorry, I had to call her bitch because she had to go. I was like, have
you ever heard Jesse Lee Peterson talk?
Oh my gosh.
Oh God.
Yeah. She is the female version of Jesse Lee Peterson.
But you know what? I can't even say that because at least Candace Owens can put together a sentence.
Right.
I give her that. She has a decent assemblage of the English language.
Yeah.
When you get to Jesse Lee Peterson, oh my God!
Y'all, this is the first crowd that knew who I was talking about. Just so you know.
Yeah. No, yeah. I've actually heard that name before.
Oh, so B and Mr. Shadow Kitty.
You can call me Nils.
I'm sorry, Nils. Yes. If you want to waste an afternoon, just pull up Jesse Lee Peterson on YouTube. And if you just want to
watched him speak before.
Okay,
first.
Right, Nils, and I'm pretty sure that was a big waste of time too, right?
Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
I'd really rather not lose my lunch. I don't think I can handle an afternoon of that shit. I just can't.
Yeah. Right.
It's high
I have tolerance for it.
Yeah, it's
he's a caricature of himself.
Right.
And I mean, because like I get speechless when I be thinking about some of these people, especially Jesse Lee Peterson, when he starts talking, because my brain can't completely wrap around the concept that you would actually let these things actually fall out your mouth.
Oh yeah.
What?
But it's a pathology. Is it Stockholm syndrome?
Stockholm syndrome, where you actually love your captor. Yeah,
exactly.
When you love your captor. Yeah.
And so I mean, I heard
kill you.
him say that he thanks God for slavery.
Yeah.
Right now, that's on the same par as Kanye West saying that slavery was a choice.
Right.
Right. And this is reason number 700 for the last 2 hours that we've been talking. This is literally reason number 700 why 4 years from now, we'll still have the same conversation. Because, again, you can trot out Sean Hannity and Laura Ingraham and all the other crap, but what's going to keep shit like this going is that when it's time to solve the problem, they'll put Jesse Lee Peterson on the mic.
Oh
They'll,
God,
they'll
I need that not to happen.
So, but that's again,
No, I
like
hear you
said,
though. Yeah.
you and I can sit here and complain all we want, but until our white brothers and sisters get on board, we're still going to be doing this fight. And it's like that until the straight people get on the same boat with their LGBTQ brothers and sisters. They're just going to be a bunch of faggots who are complaining. Until men drop their privilege, women are just going to be a bunch of bitches that aren't appreciative for what they've got. And when it's time for you and I, Ms. McDonald, to go forward, that's when they put Candace Owens on the mic to say stupid shit like, I don't know why those other Negroes are complaining. She's the one. She's the one. When you and I are planning our escape in the 1700s, she's the one that goes to Master and say, you need to be ready at 12 o'clock midnight tomorrow morning because those niggers are going to run. Right. So that's what I'm saying. We will have this exact same conversation in 3 to 4 years. There'll be 500 more George Floyds and Sandra Blands.
Yes.
Because, like I said, I'm backwards. Everything you said is spot on. And we're all four sitting here nodding our heads. But how many people are ready to receive the knowledge that you just kicked? Not enough to make a difference. And after almost 50 years on this planet, I'm glad that people are like, Robert, what about solidarity? But my kids will have to answer those exact same phone calls because I don't know if this country's ready to get to take the racist spoon out of their mouth. They love the way racism tastes in this country.
Even with that, see, the thing about it is that it's going to be there. You're never going to be ready. I mean, who was ready for the Civil Rights Acts? You know, it just had to get to the point where Black folk got fed up. You know, and I mean, and we're just seeing it over and over again. I mean, like what's going to happen is that you got us in the streets saying, stop, enough is enough. And it's kind of like what Fannie Lou Hamer said back when she was being interviewed in the early 70s. She said, I understand where these young people are coming from. And they are saying is that we gonna burn this, we gonna tear this stuff up and we gonna burn it down. Because if we can't have it, you can't either. And that's where we are. And I don't know if there's something different about this now, because now I'm seeing more white people actually joining in protest and asking questions. And I am saying that and that does give me some semblance of hope. But one of the things, like even like I remember a fairly new white friend reached out to me in Twitter and said, you know, I'm trying to educate myself, but I really don't know what to do. And I know that's like a lot of white folk. And I would say there's two things. Number one, white people, you have to be willing to give up whiteness. That's number one.
Come on.
Because whiteness,
I don't even give a shit done.
Right. Well, I mean, but I'm just saying the whiteness is not about color. It's about normalcy. You have to be able to give up your privilege in normalcy when it comes to the United States. That's number one. And number two, you have to be full-throated in saying that we are fully supporting redress and repair for the institutional racism and terrorism that we have subjected our citizens to for over 400 years.
Come on.
And that is reparations for the American descendants of slaves before the cash payments are set aside. And I have no problem with saying that. No, it's not complicated because I'm going to tell you why. This country came off on $2.2 trillion in less than a week. In less than a week. And the majority of that money went to corporations.
Yes.
So you cannot tell me that you don't have the money to help repair the shit that you did to our people for 400 years. Yes, you do. And the only way
exactly my point. We can give Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I'm just saying, like, if you can give this to these people because you said the economy got to keep going, you can go ahead and reinvest and replace that particular money that you stole, that capital that you stole, that wealth that you stole, those resources that you stole for over 400 years. Yes, you can. Yep. Because, like I said,
absolutely,
whole communities are not over policed. Whole communities are not having to worry about how to pay for colleges. Mm-hmm. Whole communities are not even worried about if their children are going to get a proper education. Yep. Whole communities are not even worried about if we have a goddamn grocery store. Yep. This does not happen in whole communities. Okay? So if you really want fires to stop, if you really want people to stop being so goddamn angry, if you really want people to actually say that, you know what, we're actually going to be more participatory in what the American process is, you have to make them fully American. And that's exactly what you are not doing. You broke the social contract, and it is not up to us to fix it. You got to fix it. Yep. And I'm done.
Agreed. Abso-fucking-lutely. You know,
you said it all. The mic.
I've got to get you guys back on here because I'm still learning stuff from you, and I really want to talk about the mental health issues that it's causing children and why they can't have fucking childhoods because they're black. Because it really pisses me off. Yeah. I mean, I didn't have the best childhood. We were poor. We grew vegetables in our garden. We slaughtered our own animals so we could fucking eat. Right. And that's how I grew up. But but I grew up out in the country in a peaceful environment where the only thing you'd have to worry about is a stray shot from a hunter, which never happened. Right. You know, I didn't have to deal with that level of it. We got moved into town when I was 12. We lost our farm because my dad was a piece of shit. Anyways, we moved into this shitty neighborhood in town, and I was like, "What the fuck?" Right. And it still wasn't predominantly black, and it was bad. I just can't even imagine what happens to those children and what is ingrained in them and what they have to think about when they walk out the door. And the fact that they can't just be like, I'm going to get done with school and play with my friends. No, I can't, because there was a shooting down the street and there's a bunch of cops everywhere. And if one of us does something wrong, you know, so I really, there's so much. We've got to do like part 2, 3, and 4 or something.
I would be honored
so much
to come back to do a part 2.
And first of all, let me say, thank you very much to each of you for being fucking honest and forthright and not holding back. Rant and rave. I want to fucking hear it. Number 2, one of the reasons I want to get you guys on here is because the YouTube, not my Twitter community. My Twitter community is very diverse. Our atheist YouTube community is just fucking white. And I want everybody to hear this shit. And I want everybody to see a different perspective. And I want people in chat to be debating the way they are. Fuck yeah, debate it. Talk about it.
Yeah.
Because if we don't bring this up, where are we going to go? We're just going to sit here and wallow in it. And we're pedaling the fucking wheels. And the bike's sitting on a stand. We're not going to go anywhere. Mm-hmm. It just does no good. It does no good. And I know that from my perspective of people have been prejudiced against me because I've had it happen because I'm white. I had that happen with a boss just a couple years ago. She had a mostly black crew, and there was one white guy and me, and I was the supervisor over the whole crew. She was the main manager, and she treated me like shit, and everybody else was her buddy. Right. So I understand that. It was the first time it's ever happened in my life, and it fucking hurt. Yeah. It hurt a lot because I busted my ass and did everything right every day because that's how I am. Yeah. So that's all I have from my perspective. All I can go off of is people I've talked to, friends I've been with. The kid I grew up with that committed suicide at 18 because half of his family called him a nigger and the other half called him a cracker. He just couldn't take it anymore. And he was an amazing, good-looking, strapping, intelligent fucking man. Yeah. And he killed himself because he was mixed. Shit. So we lost him at 18 fucking years old. He didn't have a chance to have a life. So and it's shit like that just that was my experience growing. That's the big reality check I got growing up and why I told my dad to fuck off. Because that happened to Adam Moore. His name was fucking Adam Moore, and he was getting emotional. He was just a good dude, man.
Yeah, of course.
He was like my brother. He's like my fifth brother, you know, brother from another mother, and
So
I'm that guy to this day.
So sorry.
So
Sorry. Yeah.
anyways, I'm gonna cut this off now because I have friends streaming in other places and I don't want to overlap them. I want to respect them. I didn't think we were gonna go this long, but I was so interested in what you guys were saying. I looked up and it said 2 hours and 3 minutes. I was like,
this could have gone on even longer. Yeah.
Yeah,
I'm all for a round 2. So yeah, just hit me up.
This was very informative.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, I would love to keep doing that. I'd like to do a couple more with you guys and get into more direct conversations about the different topics of it. So, Robert, you know how to get me on Twitter. I'll holler at you, Cynthia. You can hit me on Twitter if you want. I follow Robert or whatever you want to do. And yeah, I want to do this again. I want to do this at least once a week until we get some more shit worked out and we talk about more in depth of all the different topics. I really want to do this.
Absolutely.
Thank
Robert,
you so
I now
much.
follow you on Twitter.
I appreciate you both.
All right.
Like so much. I can't even tell you. I love you guys already. I don't know you for shit. So
I love it. I love it.
Yes.
And, you know,
I know we didn't
before we go, I just have to say, I actually want to thank you, honestly and truly, because like I said, no movement gains traction until its antithesis jumps on board. And I cannot tell you how refreshing it is to have a conversation like this with someone who does not look like me, because the majority of times, and I bet you dollars to donuts, Miss McDonald will say the same thing, when you bring up certain topics with people who don't look like you, there's a good chance that conversation is just going to get shot down.
That's
and
true.
So to be able to talk to someone who does not look like you, and that person is open and receptive and says, I want to do this again. I think I speak for every person of color when I say thank you for doing this, honestly and truly, from the bottom of my heart.
No, thank you, because it is truly an honor for me. And I'm telling you, if you want to use me as a voice, baby, I will do this with you for the next 2 fucking years.
Then come on.
Anything I can do to help you, I got you. I'm not even playing. Like I got goosebumps running up and down my body just at the thought of trying to help everybody to quit fucking hating each other.
Absolutely.
You cut through that skin, it's all red, it's all flesh, it's all bones. We're all made up of the same amount of fucking water. Get over your shit and start loving your fucking neighbor. And I know, I grew up with racist shit. I know how hard it is to change those gears in your head. Mine grind every fucking day that I see some asshole being an asshole, and I don't care what color they are. I do it to white people too. But you know, it's terrible that I do it. And I want to break that shit. I want to break the chain. I want to rip it off the goddamn end of the bumper and fucking hang some goddamn streamers and some fucking happy balloons on it instead. That's what I want to fucking do.
Fair enough.
So anything you guys can do to help me do that, let's fucking do it, man.
Come on.
You know, let's just I'm again, thank you for inviting myself also on the program, B. I appreciate it. Thank you, Nils, as well, for opening up your platform to really have this very hard conversation that is necessary. Again, like I said, white folk, if you're listening, y'all need to get on board and y'all need to start talking to one another about, you know what? Yeah, we need to acknowledge what we've done and we need to be the change that we want to see. If we can't, with the earnest is not on black people. It is not on black people. Y'all got to do the work. And so, I'm grateful that you willing to open up your platform and also be able to have these conversations and talk to your community as well about, you know, doing the work. So appreciate it very much.
Well, no, thank you. Thank you. I really appreciate you. Nels, any last words?
I just enjoyed listening to everyone speak and hearing everyone's perspectives. I'm 62 years old. I remember segregated beaches. I've seen a lot of things.
Yeah.
You know, I've always been on board.
Solid. And I say thank you.
And that's one of the reasons. I'm knocking my shit around. That's one of the reasons I love Nels so much. Is he's been kicked, he's been knocked down, he's been literally beaten up.
Literally,
he has a better heart for it. He really has a better heart for it, and I appreciate the fact that he's like me. He just wants our. Can't we all just get along?
Exactly.
That's all we want.
I'm an old hippie.
Yes, Mr. King. Yeah. Yes, but can we all? I remember that too.
Oh yeah,
I remember that. Oh my.
1994.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it was 91 when that happened. The Rodney
It
King.
was. That's right. I was on the third floor of Jester.
Damn it,
That's
Robert.
right.
That's it. I'm gonna take away your black card. You didn't know that shit.
Well,
You
I
taking your
think
black card
maybe
away.
I
That's
mixed it
it.
up with like OJ or something.
Yeah, I know.
I was close.
Right. I said, no, OJ was 94, Rodney King 91. Yes.
That's right.
94 through 96, wasn't it? My
Yes.
God, that shit went on for like 2 years. Anyway.
Yeah, because I remember I was a freshman in college when OJ was acquitted, and then all the black people started running around talking about OJ free, and I'm like, y'all know he killed that woman, right? Just saying.
Or his son. One of the two did.
We may have to hammer
One of
the
the
OJ
two
thing
did.
out too,
Yeah.
because I was in college when they announced that verdict. And to this day, and I'll make it fast. The athletic dining hall was split down the middle, and I lie to you not. On the right-hand side was all the black athletes, and on this side was all the white ones. And I still remember they announced the verdict, and I lie to you not. All the blacks got up and cheered. All the whites stayed in their seats. And I still remember it was one of the white female swimmers who screamed, "That's bullshit." And we didn't give a shit. We were celebrating like it was New Year's 12 midnight. Yeah, so yeah, we can definitely hammer up the OJ shit.
1999, baby.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah, because I was like, I think that I believe that he killed that woman. I really do.
I'm with you.
I didn't celebrate that. I mean, because like, I said, like, I know that, like my father said back in the day, he always said, look, Cindy, all skin folk ain't kinfolk. Okay. So if you I don't have a problem calling that wrong for wrong. Like if you, just because you look like me, if you did some shit, you should be prosecuted for that. Period. Absolutely. You know what I'm saying? Yep. I don't glorify criminals, glorify like adverse behavior or nothing like that. Certainly. I mean, I don't do that. You know what I'm saying? I mean, I believe in justice. I believe in actually practicing proper justice, and people getting due process of the law. Like, even if George Floyd even was passing a counterfeit bill, $20 bill, and he knew it, he still should have been able to see a trial date.
Come on. Yeah, absolutely.
Fuck yeah.
You'll get no argument.
By the way, all of those cops, every single one of them that are standing there should all be thrown away and fucking put on death penalty for first-degree murder. I don't give a shit. You're standing there, you're watching it, you're doing nothing, you're still the fucking problem.
Absolutely.
It pisses me off. Yeah. There's a guy standing there looking down at him and not saying a fucking thing.
Right.
Like, you're a piece of shit too.
Every single last one of them saw a cockroach. That's why.
Right. That's right.
Why. They did not see a
Well, the shitty thing about it? The shitty thing about it, in my opinion, I don't have statistics. I don't have any fucking papers to show you. But in my opinion, I think that there's like 5 or 8 shit cops, and then that one good one that's afraid that if he says anything, he's not going to be a cop anymore because they'll get rid of his ass for standing up for the other person. And so you got that one guy that's sitting there, and he's going home every night going, fuck, I can't believe I saw that. And if he says something, then he can't help when he can help. So he or she keeps their mouth shut and lets things like that happen just so they can help this many people. Yep. And I know there's cops out there like it because I know I've lived in 9 states. I've met a lot of fucking cops, and there's a lot of assholes, but there's so many good ones out there that are just they're shoved into that good old boy shit. And if they say anything, they'll never work a day again in their life.
My father's a former military policeman. I have not, nor will I ever bash all cops. But here's the thing. You take one white person who loves everyone, and you sit them at a table full of 15 Ku Klux Klansmen. How can I tell the difference? If everyone is calling me a nigger, let's hang kikes and faggots, and if you're not the right kind of Christian, and if you're the one person sitting at that table who has not opened up their mouth, how can I tell the difference?
Right.
And I know it's hard. I listen to my dad's story sometimes. You're damn right. It's hard to be that one cop to stand up and say, fuck this. but you have to do it, because until you do it, you're no different than the dirty ass cops that do dirt on a daily basis. So again, if you are sitting as a white person at a room full of a bunch of Klansmen and everyone's saying all these derogatory things towards minorities and women and everything else, and if
and
you
your
don't
mouth is
up,
shut, you look the same.
Yeah, and if I'm sitting there looking at that, how do I tell which one is the Klansman versus
that's
which
what
one
I'm saying.
is it?
To be honest, because you're silent, you're part of the problem.
Exactly. And it's uncomfortable as shit.
Yeah.
It is man, we can go on forever, and I'm sorry, but I walked out.
For the next show.
Okay, I'm going to say one last thing.
Go ahead.
I'm gonna finish that rant with one thing.
Go ahead.
When I worked with all those rednecks, I wanted so bad to get along with them because I'm a fucking lesbian.
Yeah.
And I didn't want them to hit on. Some of them would flirt with me. Some of them would look at me funny and treat me like, oh, you're just a woman. You know, so I wanted so bad to be in with those guys. And the first time I ever said anything to that racist fucking, actually, I call it anti-ethnicist because it's an ethnicity problem. We're all fucking human race. Anyways, the first time I stood up to him and they all looked at me, my fucking heart was pounding.
Sure it was.
Not only out of anger for what he was saying, but damn, you know, they could get rid of me right now. I could lose my fucking job right now, and I have no livelihood, and I can't fucking do anything because I've been single for I don't know how many fucking years. So it was scary for me, but by God, fuck it, man. Jobs come and go. Yep. People treating other people and saying that shit, you know, and God, it's just fucking uncalled for. You want to do that in your home with your little redneck buddies, you know, go ahead, be part of the problem. Go fucking do it. But you don't need to do it out in public where you're offending people, and two, you're encouraging that fucking racist bullshit.
Exactly.
Take it home and take it to your fucking redneck bar. Say it there with your buddies over a Budweiser, but don't say it in front of me. I don't want to fucking hear it.
I feel you.
Right.
I feel you.
I hear you.
Anyway,
regulate behavior.
Okay,
Regulate behavior.
Yes, you have to hold each other. You have to hold yourself accountable, your friends accountable. Everybody needs to be held accountable for everything. And I'm not talking about white people, Hispanics, Chinese. I don't care what the fuck you are.
Everybody.
If you have fucked with other people's lives, if you are not admitting what part of the problem you are, if you're not standing up and speaking for anybody around you, I don't care race, creed, color. You just fuck, man. Do something.
Yep.
Grow some damn balls. So I'm gonna end my stream with grow some balls.
Grow some balls. That's
Grow some balls. If you ain't learned nothing else, white folks.
Grow some balls.
Grow some balls.
Yeah, grow some balls. That's right.
Grow some balls.
Cynthia, I'm gonna put that on the next fucking stream we do. Cynthia, Robert, Nels. Thank you to all three of you. Thank you, Cynthia and Robert, for coming on here.
Loved it.
We're gonna do part 2, 3, and 4. I want to talk about this more. We got so much more to say. If there's anybody else you guys want to bring in, let me know. I'm all for different perspectives. I was really trying to get a male and female because there's different perspectives there, and God, I hit a fucking jackpot by accident. It's like Jeb on the fucking Beverly Hillbillies shooting at the oil. You know, I just got fucking lucky. So thank you guys so much.
Anytime.
Thank you to everybody in the chat.
Yeah.
And I love you, brothers and sisters. I love it. I love you guys. I already do. I don't even need to think about it. And we will see everybody next time. I will make sure to throw out on Twitter where our next stream is going to be. And I just appreciate everybody. So peace out.
Appreciate you all.
Peace, everybody.
Peace out, everyone.